7:01, we will call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for tuning in. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Anson.
Here.
Trustee Doro.
Here.
Trustee Myers.
Here.
Trustee Landwehr.
Here.
Trustee Swanson.
Here.
Trustee Walschlager. Here. President Vanderstone.
Here. If you'd all rise, remove hats for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Trustee Swanson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that, if anyone is here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda and wants to address the board, they can do that at this time. Seeing as there is no one to address the board for items that are not on the agenda, we will move to the first item, which is a consideration of a motion to approve the village board minutes of October 8th, 2018. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to approve the vouchers for payments in the amount of $1,490.
I move that we pay for the vouchers for $1,490.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on the vouchers. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
That motion is carried. Next, we have items that are consideration of actions related to licenses and permits. Consideration of an application for operators, bartenders licenses with a term ending June 30th, 2020. That license is for Elizabeth Ann Emmeling. The police chief and village clerk have reviewed the license application listed above, and the applicant has successfully completed the responsible beverage servers course.
I move we grant her license.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant that license. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The license is granted. Next, we have a bartender's operator's license. This is recommended for denial. This is for Frederick Wacker. It has been reviewed by our police department, and it is recommended for denial.
I so move we deny everything.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to deny the license for Frederick Wacker. Any discussion? Is he here? If he is here and would like to speak, that can be done at this time. Any discussion from the board? All in favor of denying the license? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That license is denied. That letter will be sent. Next, we have a temporary bartender's operator's license for Ann Kathleen Wick. This is for St. Charles Trivia Night.
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that license. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. At this time, we will open the public hearing on the proposed 2019 village budget, including the general fund, water and sewer, utility funds, debt service, and all other revenues and expenditure funds, with consideration of adoption of the budget at the November 12th, 2018 village board meeting. Ryan?
Ryan Bailey, Finance Director. Just to give you a little bit of a background or refresher, our general fund expenditures are $7,799,837. That is a decrease of approximately 0.15% from 2018's budget. The actual general fund levy is $4,512,167, which is a 1.3% increase. The net new construction was a 1.8% increase. So the majority of the increase attributed to the new residents or new additions to the village. The overall levy, including debt, is $5,980,117. That's an increase of 3%. The anticipated mill rate change is approximately 10.6 cents per thousand of taxes. So a $270,000 house would see approximately a $28 or $28.50 increase, and the majority of that is all debt related. We have no water rate increase. There is a sewer rate increase of 5%, which equates to about $22 a year. No garbage fee increase, and then just a reminder, there is a full-time secretary in the budget in the fire department. Those are really the significant pieces of the budget.
Thanks. That public hearing that was the beginning of it. It is still open if any members of the public would like to come forward and speak regarding this budget. And there are no takers on that. At this time, unless anybody has anything, will close the public hearing for the budget. The next item we have is consideration of second reading of a bill for an ordinance number 10-08-2018-01, amending the quorum requirements for the Delafield Hartland Water Pollution Control Commission.
I so move that we adopt the,
Oh,
whoops. What?
If you want to do that, that's
Suspend
perfectly
the
fine,
rules.
but you have to suspend the rules, remember?
just
Suspend the
on that
rules.
motion, you have to suspend the rules.
Okay,
This is only the second,
this is the second reading.
so you can suspend the rules and we can get it done. I was just giving you a heads up.
Well, I don't think it's important, and I move that we suspend the rules.
Second. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Gotta have a roll call, is that correct?
It doesn't hurt, I don't remember. for
Roll
sure.
call vote on the motion and the second to suspend the rules.
Trustee Anson.
Aye.
Trustee Doro.
Yes.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Landwehr.
Aye.
Trustee Swanson.
Aye.
Trustee Walshiger.
Aye.
President Vanderstel.
Yes.
Now I move that we adopt this ordinance
I second.
10-08-2018.
It's been moved and seconded under suspended rules to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. That ordinance is adopted. All right, next we have consideration of actions and items related to the Glen at Overlook Trails, a condominium development on the property located at and adjacent to N56W28628 County Highway K, also known as Lisbon Road. At this time, I am going to address everyone here, including board members, all of you that are out there. We're going to have some rules just to make sure everything runs extremely smooth. These rules are as follows. The rules are up on the podium, and if you do come up and speak, if you could sign your name and put your address, that's appreciated. It makes it much more easier on our clerk. To just take it step by step, first, the applicant is going to address the board. The next, and they'll have 10 minutes to do so, 10 minutes or less. After that happens, the applicant will take their seats, and the public will address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes per person. At that time, after that is done, the applicant will come back up and will have 3 minutes to address the board from anything that may have come up from those public comments. After that, without repeating things that we've already said, okay, please don't repeat, we don't need to repeat ourselves. Members of the public, if there is something they want to add, you'll have 1 minute to come up and address the board. Once that happens, the board individually, each trustee individually, one at a time, will have their time on the floor to ask questions and get any information they need from the applicant. The entire meeting, I just want to make sure we know it's a one-way street. Everything is technically intended to come this way. Everybody can talk after the meeting or somewhere else to have conversations, but everything is for everyone, the applicant, you in the gallery, to let us know whatever you're thinking or presenting. With that, the public hearing has been opened, or I'm opening it. And at this time, if Newman Developments would like to come up so that they can present to the board recent developments and long-time things we already know.
Yep, so Brian Lindgren, Newman Developments. I guess I'll just start by saying this project, still remains the same in concept that was approved, several months back, 50 single-family condo homes. Over the last several Plan Commission meetings, we've discussed several topics about connectivity, classification of the roads as public or private, different things in regards to the natural areas and preserving those. So as far as an update, I guess it just to the board, and hopefully this will address a lot of the public's anticipated comments, is as of the last Plan Commission meeting last week, we were asked to re-engage the Highway Department in conversations on the emergency access route into the neighborhood. We have done that, and we were able to push them for a quick answer, which they thankfully have provided for everybody. That new access, they believe, is going to be an acceptable location further west from our main entrance down the hill. This would be close to the private drive that accesses out, but not connecting to the private drive, not crossing the private drive, or not connecting to Southern Oak Drive. This would be a separate emergency access only, of which they've kind of expressed some conditions of properly signing it and putting up barricades and so on, so it's noted as emergency use only. So we sent that information. We just got it today, so we just sent that into the commission this afternoon. So that hopefully will resolve a lot of those questions, in which case we can move forward on some of the other details. We're going to be here to answer questions, but largely our proposal remains the same as what was reviewed by the Plan Commission and the notes that they've sent.
All right. Thank you. At this time, any members of the public that would like to come up and speak, try to keep it to 3 minutes or under. You can step forward to the podium and you can speak. I'm going to also add something because I think I kind of missed a step here. I didn't miss a step, but just so everybody knows the wording I read leading in, the public hearing is for, it's for the rezoning of 38.81 acres to an RS1 single-family residential district with both PUD and Upland Conservancy overlay districts. I kind of read it in a very broad way, so if anybody's confused, raise your hand, we'll try to address it. But the public, anybody that wants to speak, please step forward, and you can sign your name and then speak.
Quick point of order. Is there anything else on the agenda under 6 other sub-points that are not shown on the screen at this point?
Yes, there is D and E.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dino Zikis. I live on 605 Southern Oak Drive. I spoke in front of you several times in the past. You all know the concerns we always had. The first thing I want to ask is, a question was asked exactly a year ago at the original board meeting about this development. And the question that came up was the sewer system. Mr. Cox was asked if the sewer system can handle the new development, and he said yes. So based on the Freedom of Information Act, I would like Mr. Cox to provide the document by a PE, by a licensed engineer, that shows the capacity of the sewer system and the number that it can handle, the additional number. Number 2, first I'd like to address Mr. Landwehr, who has served this board very faithfully and in a noble way for 6 decades. Okay. Well, I'm not going to preach or say anything bad. I'm very happy you do that, and I hope with what happens on the vote today, as you always have done consistently in the past, you vote in the best interest of the residents of Hartland that elected you to be in this position. Now, for the rest of the board, some of you may run for a position again, some of you may try to get a position in the future. And I just want to remind all of you that it's our vote that brings you to this table so you can protect the interest of the residents. And don't forget that. Don't forget who put you in that position so you can spend the taxpayers' money wisely and not the way somebody else wants to. Thank you.
Next, anyone? Anyone else want to speak?
Good evening. My name is Bill Zane. I used to live in Oak Ridge condominiums. I currently live in the Bristol Cone Pines condominium subdivision. We've already expressed an interest in this new development at Glen Oaks. I think that Hartland would benefit from this alternative single-family condominium development as an additional opportunity for people to own condos that are single-family units. I think it's unique and different from anything else that's currently available in the community, and it's attractive to a certain type of purchaser, and just wanted to voice my support for this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you write your name down on the sheet? Oh, if you could, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Anybody else that wants to speak? Thank you.
Kevin King, live at 1264 Mary Hill Circle. By the way, I don't disagree with what he said about the development as far as having condominiums. I guess what I'm disappointed in is the little bit of bait and switch that's been going on with the developer. He switched the zoning from, I believe, single family to multiple family to get the density levels he needed. I've just heard, and I don't know if this is true, but did he now switch the roads to public roads away from private roads? Is that what they voted on at the Plan Commission? Is that what I heard?
That has not been decided, but
Okay. I would be against that. I believe the location that he's talking about for the emergency road access is off of KE and not off of Southern Oaks. Is that correct? Is that what they just mentioned? Off of K? Off of K, I mean? Is that what he's now agreeing to? So they wouldn't seek condemnation of the driveway or access in any way into Mary Hill? Is that what I'm hearing?
at this point, something new has come up in the last few hours.
Okay.
Connecting onto K
Okay.
as an emergency
we-
access and completely walking away from Southern Oak.
So are we not voting on approval of the whole process right now? Or are we voting, what are we voting on?
Right now, it's just a public hearing to hear what
Okay.
all of the public has to say, including the applicant, so that we can, as a board, when we go close it down to discussion, that we can talk about it.
Perfect.
No, I don't know what we'll be voting on, because that'll be a
Okay.
board decision on whether someone makes a motion.
And I think it's pretty clear that Mary Hill stands behind the fact that we don't want any access to Southern Oaks. There's really no other way to get, if you're headed to Arrowhead out of that subdivision, everybody's coming down a dead-end street that we have right now, and that is not acceptable to anybody around here. And I'm sure there's a lot of people behind me that'll agree with that, so just want to be clear on all that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nan Haggerty. My husband George and I have come here to speak on behalf of the Glen at Overlook Trails. We built my address, we live in Richfield right now,
Okay.
763 Ravine Ridge Drive, Richfield, Wisconsin. We built our home there in 1997. And of course, this is 20 years later. We're not getting any younger. We live on a 3-acre lot right now. And we have decided this last summer that we'd like to look at condominiums. So we started to look around. We looked in Ozaukee County, we looked in Waukesha County. We ran into the condominiums that Newman Development built at Lily Creek. And we're very impressed with the workmanship, with the quality of the condominium units. But we couldn't find a lot that we liked there. So I started doing some research and came upon this development here in Hartland. I've always loved Hartland. I've lived in Waukesha County before, and I've lived in the city of Milwaukee. But we found this development, and because it's a new development, we developed a great interest in it. I think that a development of this nature will bring people like my husband and I to the community of Hartland. Probably people that are economically stable, not troublemakers, people that are going to work in local businesses, perhaps part-time, volunteer, in hospitals or whatever. A lot of people our age do volunteer work. I think it would be an asset to the village of Hartland to approve this condominium project. So I ask you to approve it. I know that there are some problems with the people that live in the subdivision adjacent to it, and I understand that. You know, we live in a subdivision right now that's rather secluded, and someone could certainly build a condominium project in a field that is next to ours, which would open up our dead-end road and send it out to 164. When we built our house there, we knew, one more minute, when we built our house there, we knew that was a possibility, because it's a dead-end road. So, anyway, I hope that we can work through the problems for the subdivision that's adjacent to the Glennet Overlook Trails, and I would support its approval, and I ask that you approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else that will want to speak?
Not really, but I will. No, I'm just kidding.
We're out of here.
I'll be out of here in a minute.
That's okay, take your time.
There you go.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I don't mean to be dumb, but what just happened is, oh, there. See. Well, I'm Susan Gerard. I live at 606 Southern Oak Drive. Trying to write that at the same time. Well, let's see. You've all seen me before. You've all heard my many messages. Originally, our biggest concern was, you know, the development coming into our road, Southern Oak. I appreciate that that may have changed and that we may get it put next to the driveway, as he earlier spoke about. However, after the last meeting that we just were at on Monday, I have a whole new set of problems. One of which is, ever since we've been coming and looking back at some of the documents that I've saved back in 2016, and Jeff spoke of it a little at the last meeting, this was supposed to be a condominium development, not a individual family subdivision with public roads. They were supposed to, at one point it was listed as the development with the, I'm going to get mixed up on what I'm going to say, with the public roads, but then it was changed because we're always getting all these changes, and then the next like 3 plats that we saw said now they were private roads. So until the other day, I didn't realize that that was going to be changed, and that you all, or not all of you, but many of you, you know, made it known that you feel that that's okay. I don't feel that's okay, and I didn't like the comment that, not this fellow this time, but last time, who spoke for Newman, and he made remarks about saying, well, if we're going to be in Hartland and we're paying Hartland taxes, we should be able to have all the perks that Hartland has. Well, he is going to get all the wonderful perks that Hartland has, and the biggest perk he's getting is sewer and water, and believe you me, I know better than anybody how great that is. So that's why we waited for Mary Hill and didn't move into Mary Hill Park, which was Merton. So anyway, we have our sewer and water. That is a big deal. But he also said, who's going to want to buy a condominium when we have to include in our maintenance fees the maintenance to take care of our streets? That's like unheard of. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you all don't already know this, I know it for sure, and you can sort of research it, and I hope that you do. Most all condominiums that are in big developments have those roads. We've owned 2 of them. We still currently have one in Florida. So I don't want to hear that. You know, when somebody goes to buy a condominium, they go in because they like it, and they look at the maintenance fees, and they decide for themselves at that point, is it worth me getting? Is my time up? Okay.
15 seconds.
15 seconds? Well, now I can't think because it beeped on me. That's okay. But anyway, that upsets me, and I didn't like the thing about, of course, now the taxpayers will have to, take care of all that. And that is a big deal because it wasn't what it was initially planned, and I agree. I feel things have been snuck in and bait and switch, and I'll quit.
Thank you. Anybody?
Good evening, Patrick Walsh. I live at 1285 Mary Hill Circle. I'd ask for a couple of things. I'd ask for more transparency from the Planning Commission. The fact of the matter is, every time you turn around, the rules of this project seem to change. And I'm okay with change, I get that. I run a part of a very large company. Things change by the hour, let alone by the day. But at least there's transparency where I work and people know what's going on before we make these kinds of decisions. Secondarily, I'm opposed to any access into Mary Hill Circle. I live right at the corner where Colonial Drive comes in to Mary Hill, and I saw what it did to the people on Colonial Drive. So it's not fair to the folks on Southern Oak. Fact of the matter is, access in and out of Southern Oak will not impact me and my family personally, but it's wrong to do that to the people who live on that street. Third, I object to the issue of public roads. The developer has one goal and one goal only, and that's to make a profit for him and his shareholders. I appreciate that. He's running a business, but he shouldn't be doing that on the back of the rest of the Hartland taxpayers. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name's Attorney Kevin Clark. I represent John and Trudy Gebhard. They live at N56 W28754 County Road K. They own the private drive in between Mary Hill and the proposed development. First, as it relates to the development itself, my client has maintained and continues to maintain that the development is too dense. It's inconsistent with prior village planning, and he really believes that the village got the planning right initially when they had more dense parcels towards the village center, and they got less dense as you went towards the jurisdictional limits of the village. As it relates to the issue of eminent domain that the village board intends to take up tonight, any action of eminent domain he would resist and is opposed to. However, as the applicant has stated, there is a potential for a second access that wouldn't involve eminent domain. First, Mr. Gebhard and Ms. Gebhard believe that that access would be more appropriate, and the village board should really consider exhausting that development or as a potential access before considering eminent domain over their private drive, especially for the benefit of a developer. And that's all I have. Thank you. And I will.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
So, Joe Wallachy, 624 Southern Oak Drive in Hartland. My concern is simply, and I'll keep it simple, the density issue. I've sat through most of these meetings, concerned around the transparency and some of the updates that were going on, but I've attended most by far. And I thought that we switched to private roads so we could increase the density, the amount of build we could put on the lot. And then it seemed like at the last meeting, and this is back to the bait and switch, we switched to public roads after the density box has been checked. So it's just a little bit more around, the bait and switch and what appears to have gone on there in regards to that issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Logland, 603 Southern Oak Drive. I'd like to emphasize what Mr. Walke and Mr. Walsh have already said, just about the transparency, having an updated plan. I wasn't able to attend all of the recent meetings, but the first meeting, Newman showed up with a big map, and they showed the master plan. I haven't seen anything since, and again, I wasn't able to attend the meetings, but really hard to get notes on where the latest plan is. I was a little pleased to hear that in the last few hours that a different access other than Southern Oak Drive is, I'd like to see what that looks like, and then also with the population density issue, the sewer issue, all these other things, just to see what the latest is. It'd be great to have that transparency and see what the latest plan is. But strongly oppose anything coming through Southern Oak Drive.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. John Stahl, 1235 Mary Hill Circle. It has been stated there, I do feel there is a little bit of a bait and switch as far as how things are going with the developer and some of the plans that have been out there, and even some of the correspondence, even at the last meeting with the Planning Commission, kind of going back and forth and not necessarily having a definitive recommendation coming forward, with leaving some things that were open and yet on the table with regards to potential emergency access and emergency road there. It was good to hear in the last few hours, again, that potentially that is going out to K. I would ask that if you do vote, that would be hard and fast this time as far as making that recommendation out to K. On it, and any approval would be going in that direction, as opposed to leaving it open as to potentially, any place that sees fit, or if I've got exact wording that came out of the Planning Commission that was approved at the approved language from the Planning Commission meeting last week. But I would say definitely any access for that, or any emergency access for that, out to K directly, and would be opposed to anything coming either across the 30-foot strip or into Southern Oak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, did you get the name? Sir, did you sign in? Do you mind? You can. Well, no, it's so much easier for the clerk when she goes back to match up the names.
Good evening. I'm Scott Wade. I live at 607 Southern Oak Drive, adjacent to the proposed development. And I've spoken before, I've written, I've met with a few of you. I'm just quite simply against the road on Southern Oak coming through. I view it as a safety issue. We don't want the traffic. And that, of course, it might lead to lower property values, but we're really worried about the kids. I've got 4 little children. And of course, somebody else could live there down the road, but it just seems to me that there's a way to do this in a win-win way, where somebody can do something with that property that's beneficial, yet that the road doesn't have to go through. And it sounds like we may have come up with something recently that would be a good fix for that. And that's what we're for, some kind of win-win thing for the people that live on that little street and our new neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is John Perrett, and I live in 4 Wind Subdivision, 372 Switchgrass Court. And we've been residents here in Hartland for over 10 years and would like to stay in Hartland. And currently, we are also looking for a condominium, and this is very attractive to us. And I would just like to say, I don't really see any negatives about building some smaller, single-family condominiums. I mean, I think it'd be a win-win for everybody. I think a lot of the residents would stay in, instead of like me moving out of Hartland. I'd love to stay in Hartland. But currently, there's nothing like this available, nothing even close. And so I just would like to say I'm for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? If the, anyone else, last call for the 3-minute window. If the applicant would want to come back up to address anything that the public may have said, anything that, if there is anything, as we said before, just like 3 minutes, because there will be a question and answer session with us. The cell phones are all going off, sorry. I don't know why.
There's not a
Sorry.
Brewer game tonight.
Very sorry.
It's
I
not
know,
that.
I know. We have no.
It's unfortunate, but.
Sorry about that. My apologies.
Do I need to sign in or am I?
I think.
I can if you want, but
I
good
think
evening,
we're
Matt,
good.
Matt Newman from Newman Companies. I think I've been here
Yeah.
now for, I think we're going on 18 or 19 months at this point in this project. There've been a lot of comments tonight about baiting and switching and changes and how things keep happening and how can something happen like in the last couple of hours. And I'd just like to say to the board as well as to the residents that are here, these projects are living and breathing, they're dynamic, they move. So we have done our best to respond to the demands of the village, both Plan Commission and board, as well as the residents, as well as the county. The county was very involved in this project for probably the first 12 months, and even as of today with the emergency access request. So we've been trying to juggle a lot of different demands on this project. This is not an easy site to develop for a number of different reasons, but it's a beautiful piece of land, certainly a beautiful location, accessible. It's fantastic. So that's why we keep coming back, is because we know this site will work. We know what we're proposing is going to work. Having said that, one of the requests we made earlier on was for additional density. That was turned down. That was, actually it was tabled, but I believe it was going to be turned down. And that was a number of months ago. Many of you, I think, were a part of that conversation at the time. So we actually did not request additional density. We went back to the existing comp plan in the village of Hartland. We did not make a master plan amendment. So that's number one, is the density meets the existing comp plan. And then the accessibility, we were able to get an access off Highway K, which is good. It's at the top of the hill. I know it's not ideal, but there's no other location to make it work. We made that work. The residents were opposed from day one, going back to, I think, last February, to the access to Southern Oak with a public road. We originally said we're going to try to not do that, and then we came to the realization maybe we could just do it with an emergency access. And now, fortunately, and actually it was Trustee Walschlager, I think, who had the idea at the last Plan Commission meeting, that we try to go out to Highway K. So we spent the last week kind of scrambling, trying to get a hold of the county, finding out if they'd allow us to put a breakaway gate at Highway K, which again, not the safest location. It's the bottom of a hill with 45, really 55-mile-an-hour vehicles going down that hill. But they have told us that they believe that's going to work, obviously subject to engineering requirements being met. So they too are working with us, knowing it's probably a 1 in a million circumstance or less that that road ever really gets used, just like it would have been at Southern Oak. But again, trying to work with the residents in the area, that's what we did. So that literally, that answer we heard back sometime this afternoon. It was very fresh. So we're trying to do what we can as far as that 30-foot access strip. I can't stand talking about eminent domain. Frankly, it bothers me a lot. But sometimes there's a reason for it. I hope we don't need it. We actually had correspondence with the owner's attorney as of today, letting them know that this was going to be on the agenda because we can't afford to annex the property and rezone the property and then not have access to services. We also wanted to communicate with them. We just heard from the county, and I'm sorry I'm running out of time. We just heard from the county that the emergency access would be able to come off Highway K, which I think was his number one concern other than a public road. And as such, I think we've overcome that concern. So I think at this point, at least from what we've been told through the landowners council, is that just having a sewer and water connection, and actually there's a sewer connection north and a sewer and water connection to Southern Oak, that would be more amenable to them. Now, we don't have an agreement yet, so we don't know how that's all going to pan out, but at the end of the day, everything's underground, it's not going to be above ground, and I think that overcomes the majority of his concerns. So
I feel like the reason it's been moving, it's not baiting and switching. I live 2 miles from here. We're not in the business of baiting and switching. We have a long-term reputation in this community and many others. This is our first project in Hartland. I hope it's not our last. I probably have kids that play with many of the folks that are here in this room. This isn't a bait and switch game for us. We take that very seriously. But it is a situation that we are continually trying to listen and learn and make adaptations to make this the best project for Hartland. I do believe this project belongs in Hartland. I believe it needs to be serviced by sewer and water in the village of Hartland. I don't believe it should be developed in the town of Merton. So that's why we keep coming back. That's why we're here tonight. I hope that clarifies some of the things that have been out there. We certainly are open to questions either now or when it's on the agenda.
Yeah, we're having, we'll allow the public come up, because I know that,
Okay.
I think that you were out there maybe taking a call, but the public will come up for 1 minute, but nothing can be repeated that's already been said. Then you guys will have Q&A
All right.
with each board member.
Got it. Thank you for the extra minute or whatever it was.
Yeah, you're good. All right, anybody that wants to speak can come forward at this time, 1 minute, and please do not repeat something that you've already said. This is kind of there in case there's something you missed or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I don't need to resign, correct?
He does not need to resign.
Okay. Most of us wouldn't have to be here again today if it wasn't for the planning commission meeting a week ago, which was pretty disturbing. And I take what Mr. Newman says with, I believe him, but the actions are a little bit different. A year and a half ago, he came up here and told everyone, I drive in Hartland, just like he said today, his children play with some of our children and all that. Then it doesn't have to be fighting each other. The compromise could have come a lot sooner. But I want to clear a record because I think some of the board members know it, but certainly several of the members of the planning committee don't. The comprehensive plan of the village of Hartland is delinquent because it was issued in 2005. It's been 13 years and it hasn't been renewed. So when I hear several of you speaking about the comprehensive plan, it means nothing. It's not a law, it's not an ordinance, it's not a requirement. As Mr. Newman said earlier, it's a dynamic process. Things are moving. Things are progressing. Village of Hartland was not what it is today. So I want to make sure you let everyone in the planning commission know. Either come up with a comprehensive plan that it's up to date, that's the minimum they can do. And second, it's not the law, it's not an ordinance, and it's just a guideline. And guidelines can be changed constantly based on changes in society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask a quick question. What is the status of, or is there a plan for Young Bluth and K in terms of traffic? Stoplight, what's going to happen there? Has there been any discussion?
County project.
I'm sorry?
County project, 7 to 10, maybe more.
So we're going to let this go through, and we're just going to keep having a 3 or 4-way stop there?
I can't answer for the county.
Well, I'm not asking you to, but that's what you're telling me, though, right?
That
Unless
we're
the
gonna
county does something, we're going to be sitting with a...
If it doesn't develop, the county will leave it sitting as it is.
Yeah, right.
And if we do develop, then the county will do traffic studies, car counts.
Does the planning commission not have an accountability to that issue as a part of this whole project? To work with the county?
We did. We've changed our comprehensive plan so that it
Okay.
fits right along with the county so they can move right in, get
Okay.
the trucks rolling, and get that road laid.
Great, that's helpful.
ASAP.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening and thank you. My name is George Hegarty. I live in Richfield, Wisconsin. My wife Nan spoke earlier. I just had one question for the developers. We owned a condominium previously, and we contracted with a private landscape company who plowed our road. It was very similar to this. It was road in and cul-de-sac. They plowed the road. They shoveled right up to our drive. They even cleaned our gutters, which we paid for with our monthly fee, and we also paid the sewer and water with our monthly fee. So we would really, I'm speaking in favor of this project, by the way, that we would really not impact anything on Hartland's city services or village services, but we would pay taxes and not have any impact on the services whatsoever. So I don't know, maybe the developer can answer that question. I didn't hear it specifically
Well,
addressed.
you taking that up with him, if you're interested in one of those
Yes.
units, there may be some stuff you're gonna hear that's gonna come out when we go through question and
Yeah,
answers with.
But just so the
trustee.
board is aware of that also.
Sure.
That-
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, you bet. Anybody else from the public?
Again, Attorney Kevin Clark on behalf of John and Trudy Gebhard. The applicant has spoke on our discussions with respect to utilities. Most certainly, Mr. Gebhard's main concern has been the emergency access. There have been discussions with the applicant as far as the utilities issue. We also, too, are hopeful that eminent domain will not be required. However, we have not come to an agreement yet, but we are open to discussions. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarification. Anyone else? Yep. Is that, I'm going to take a recess in the middle of a public hearing.
I think she said when it was done.
Oh,
Before we go into any further sections, like now.
I mean, you can take a break in the public hearing if you have to.
all right. Does anyone else need to speak? I want to let everybody know what's coming next so that they do know. So with that, that was the end of kind of citizen rebuttal. What will happen next is you all can stay and listen when we come back from recess, which we're going to unless someone objects to that. And this will be question and answer time where us on the board, the trustees, myself, can ask questions to the applicant, and that will be back and forth. Let's all be polite, even if you don't like an answer. Let's not, let's just keep it, it's going perfect so far. Let's keep that going, okay? With that, unless anybody on this board objects, we will take a 5-minute recess that's been requested. I usually don't, you know why I don't use that? Because on the microphones, it just bangs the TV.
Here's another better card, quick. My card.
Oh, it does work. Oh, all right, cool. Thanks, everyone.
So now what?
So now we have question and answer. Trustee, this is just for the applicant and us. So obviously, nothing will come across as rude. It will be one at a time. Once that trustee starts, they'll have their time one-on-one. This is just for, you do not have to use the entire 5 minutes. Hopefully, as it goes on, some questions will be asked. Obviously, some may try to rush you along because their 5 minutes is their 5 minutes, but that answer time is included in there. Unless we hit some odd situation where it takes a really long time to explain. So with that, a hand did go up. Go ahead. Trustee Walschlager, 5 minutes.
I believe, Brian, correct? You had said, when you were talking about the roads and the memo that you got, you said, not that it can be done, you said they believe it can be done. The county person said they believe is what your wording was, which is on tape. And I read in the memo, it says that the road has to be private. And according to what it says, it does not say that it's a done deal. It says they think it can be at this rate, but it's not a done deal. They have to take it to their board and have a meeting, so it really isn't a done deal yet. It's just an idea now that's going to be in front of them to go to, as I understand this, from what I read. Now, again, we just got this information right at the meeting here. And I'd also like the information on the sewer capacity. Also, single-family homes versus condos. I would like that wording to remain as condos, not homes. My other question is on the roads. It still says private roads, and I believe as all the condo developments in Hartland are private, that this again should stay private. And my question to you is on this, I had a there's also a change on here I've never seen before, and that's with this trail continuation. This is the first time I've seen that, too. I've not seen that on anything until tonight. So that's another change. But my question is, I talked to somebody at the county this last week, late in the week, and they told me that their opinion was that they would not allow this connection on K, this emergency connection here, and that their best suggestion would be to go east. But it's not official. I don't have anything in writing. I have no confirmation because that would all have to go to their board. But I'm just telling you what I was told. So I see the memos you have from this person, but I also read where it says there are additional details needed to be this isn't confidential, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Additional details needed to be updated on the plan, so this isn't ready for discussion in the meeting. It says right on here. It also says that access drive would be considered a private drive. So 400 feet is their desired site distance. Any of your comments?
Yeah, so I guess this is all new information from the highway department. And specifically wanted to get it over so everybody could see it to address these questions, but there are details to be worked out. That's true. This is a hand sketch drawing. We needed to show them a drawing of a proposed location. And the highway department is not going to issue a full approval based on a hand sketch. We need to get full engineering done just as we do at our main entrance at the top of the hill. But their email did state that they would allow it based on site conditions, which we were able to measure the site distances, and they are in excess of 400 feet at the proposed location. So.
And would you not think that we would also want to complete a drawing before we approve anything?
We just got the information this afternoon.
Oh, I understand.
But yes, it will be included with any final engineering, of course. And in regards to the privateness of the drive, it's an emergency access drive. It's not going to be used by vehicles unless an emergency. In those trail, and I apologize if that was the wrong term used. I can't even remember what I wrote because I wanted to get it over.
Well, that was what they said. Not you.
Yeah, most emergency accesses are by nature private driveways. They're not meant to be public right-of-ways. Even in a neighborhood that has public roads, if it's emergency access, it's very commonly a private driveway that's providing the emergency access, as it would have been if we were to go out to Southern Oak. It would have been a private drive. You usually put up some sort of a breakaway fence or like ballards there so that, yeah. The other thing, as far as the trail, you mentioned the trail. Again, in response to the landowner who has the 30-foot driveway there, they requested early on that there be no pedestrian crossing across his driveway. I hate to keep referring to the Southern Oak connection, but when we talked about the Southern Oak connection for emergency access, we said practically speaking, if it's paved, people are probably going to walk on it. He said, I really don't want pedestrian traffic there. So we had been discussing for a while the idea of bringing that trail down along Highway K in the right-of-way so that we can cross his driveway in the right-of-way, which does not require his permission. And unfortunately, it's the only way. Somehow we got to have connectivity to the trail system in the village of Hartland. It goes far west from that location. Why?
You said you have to?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I feel that it's in Hartland's best interest. I believe it's also on Hartland's comprehensive plan, and I believe Hartland has the intent of having connectivity of walking trails from the east side of town all the way over to the high school. So that's my belief. I'm saying what my opinion is. So I think that there should be a connection there. Well, there's a bunch of trails in already, so, but nonetheless, that's what that trail connection is for. Sewer capacity will be handled with the engineering department. I don't think we've had any objection at this point to sewer capacity because the density meets what was in the village's plans. Yep.
Thank you. Trustee Swanson? 5.
Well, I'll be short. I was on the plan commission when you first showed up, and you have a lot of persistence, which I applaud. But anyway, I am somewhat disappointed at the discussion of going to public versus private roads. However, it's still a benefit. We get a lot more tax dollars than it would cost to do this. We have some figures here. So, although I would like you to work it out, if you could, to be private, I think your development's good. I could ask for the moon and say I'd like lower price points, because we are short on the cheaper housing in Hartland. We have too much high-end priced houses, but I know you can't work miracles, or at least I haven't seen a halo around your head, so I'll leave it at that.
So we're in public roads, this is what he's gonna have, and then the setbacks.
All right, you yielding?
Yes.
No, okay.
Trustee Landry?
I think there's two things on it. I'm surprised, and these people, I give them a lot of credit for keeping down here, because this thing's been going on for about 5 years, and I've seen one every time it comes here from the Plan Commission. I got another program thing, see. But irregardless, I think a lot of that should have been back and forth to the Plan Commission, and the final thing come to the board for approval. That's the way it used to be. Because these people have been down here, and when they say, well, it's different, I agree with them, because it's different to me. This is a different complex than I've seen as we ran this. As far as the density on the sewer, we went through that on an engineering thing, and that's in our area, and even with Del Hart. But anyhow, I think it's a good project, and I want to see these things built with sewer and water wherever we can pick them up. But otherwise, I think it's a good complex. I think it's slow. You could work hard on it. And I feel sorry for these people. I feel sorry for myself having to listen to them. And then they come up and they say, well, what are you going to do? And I came tonight and I wasn't quite sure what we were going to do tonight. And here we're having another hearing. But anyhow, and then we got the Glen Oaks. Half of you people probably wouldn't, if that Glen Oaks would have been cut out, probably wouldn't even come down here, or wouldn't have had to. But I was surprised at that too. But anyhow, I've said my 2 cents worth. I appreciate everybody coming down and giving their opinion though. So I'm, whatever.
Trustee Hanson?
Questions about the public versus private roads. I grew up in 3 different condominium complexes. One of the benefits of the condominium complex is a private road. We all wanted them private. We don't want public roads in a condominium complex. So I see no need for a public road going through a condominium complex. I like what you proposed about the new entrance for the emergency vehicles, but as Ann stated, that's not finalized either. I disagree with the trail. I think it's just a way to stick it to the Gebhardts that you can't do it where you want it, so we're going to move it down where we can anyways, and, oh well. I'm not that kind of guy. The condominium complex itself, the way it sits, the way it is, I can agree to that. I mean, I think we need it. I agree with Dick, too. You can't work miracles on building costs. I wish they were cheaper, too. And I don't know what you can do to lower the cost other than lower quality, and I'm not a fan of that. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of open-ended things right now that we need to rectify. Done.
Anything else? Done? Trustee Doyle.
So my question is, 'cause it's questions, from the private to the public roads, so there's two different mandatory how wide the roads have to be, the roadways. So you've said private, so I'm assuming that you have it worked in for private roads. Now you're going to go public. Are you going to adjust the road size?
Yeah, so actually we, early on in this process, we've discussed private roads this whole time. We never got into the details of what actually was going to be included with these private roads, how they would be maintained, to what standard they were going to be built, the width of the road, the radius of the curves, the speed limits on the road, all those things we need to talk about those when the time comes. This last Plan Commission meeting, I think we spent probably, I don't know how long, over an hour on that particular topic. It obviously was time in the process where we needed to determine that, because for us to move forward, we had to know whether we were going to do a CSM to dedicate right-of-way to the village, or whether we were going to keep these private, as is oftentimes done on a condominium plat. During that discussion, we said we don't really care if they're private or public. Actually, this wasn't last Monday, this was a month ago prior to that. We said we don't really care if they're private or public, but because they have sewer and water lines running underneath them, and because the village engineering department, which we met with during that month from the last Plan Commission to the prior Plan Commission, the village engineering department wants these roads built to a public standard. So they have sewer and water lines running underneath them. They're based on what the engineer for the village of Hartland wants. They want them built to a public standard, which means they're effectively a public road, whether they're private or public. And what we're saying is, if we're going to be held to a standard of having to build these as a private or as a public road, if it's going to provide connectivity to the east, which it will someday, God willing, if that county road ever goes through and this connects to the east, so there will be other traffic outside of our particular development that will utilize these roads. We felt that if our future taxpayers in our community are going to have to pay the same tax rate as everyone else in the village of Hartland, which of course they will, that they should have the same services of maintenance, because really that's the only difference. There would have to be, even with private roads, there'd have to be a public easement over the top for the water and sewer to be serviced and maintained, and the laterals that are, the water and sewer laterals inside of the right-of-way. There have to be a public easement on there for public safety, like police and fire. And so we felt like everything about it was going to be public anyway, and in our discussions with staff, we felt that that was in the best interest of this community. And does it save our future residents cost? Yes. I mean, there's no question it does. Does it impact us as a developer? Not necessarily, but we felt like it's the only fair thing to do. If we have to build them to a public standard, and they're going to be maintained as such, that it should be maintained by the public. So that was when we made the decision, finally, is when we got into these conversations with village engineering staff, that we felt that was best, and ultimately that was a Plan Commission's recommendation after a lengthy debate about, or conversation about this last week. So that's why, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about it here tonight, but I just inherently don't think it's fair to ask people to pay the same taxes and not benefit from the same services when everything else is effectively the same. So that was where we were coming from on it.
So one more quick question. What's the difference then if you're doing single homes and calling them condos, and we're going to be maintaining all the roads in that, why are they just not a single home property? I don't understand what makes it a condo.
So in a condominium plat, it's easier to vary the setbacks. We're doing a planned unit development, a PUD, that's part of the zoning that we're requesting here, and that allows us to have narrower front yard setbacks, narrower side yard setbacks. The reason we're requesting those things is because there's a 16-acre woods on this 38-acre property that we really want to preserve. We don't want to build homes in it. And as such, we're trying to fit the homes in a smaller piece of land and preserve with walking trails and things, that wooded area. And also, we have substantial buffers we have to preserve on the south end along Highway K, and then in the future on the east, southeast corner along that future highway corridor. So we have a lot of buffers, both landscaping buffers along the highway as well as the woods that we wanted to preserve. And so we were trying to put the homes in a smaller land area rather than developing the wooded area, which we didn't feel was in the best interest of the village or ultimately the environment. So that's why we did a condominium plat. In addition, to indirectly answer the gentleman's question about services, we do intend to offer a landscaping and snow removal plan for those homeowners or those condo owners so that it does live like a condominium, even though you're in a single-family home.
Okay. Well, I personally feel that it should be private roads still. I'm not happy that that changed. And, I mean, I'm glad that the road access changed, and I know that that just came about, so I'm glad that you're at least trying to gain access that way, and hopefully that'll continue through. And I like the trail, just so you know, because there is places to walk. That's a very busy road, so I'm glad that it will continue down, so. Done.
Trustee Myers.
Last. I've only lived in 10 different states and I've had 9 different houses, and every damn house I bought, if there was a road that went to nowhere, into an empty field, I'd know that there was going to be something attached to that. So that argument to me doesn't, I have a hard time with that, because it's there, and that would affect the value of the property if there's a road or not, because there could possibly be a road there. So that didn't bother me. I mean, that's like, come on. You guys are much smarter than I am, and I'm a poor guy. What bothered me is we can't get emergency entrance into there. Everything I've heard from these meetings is traffic, traffic, traffic. That's the county. That's not even something I can touch. If there's an accident on that road, and there's a little kid that just was in a swimming pool or swallowed a battery, I can't get into him with our EMTs. I need that extra road. I need that. I got voted down with an extra road over here by Nixon Park with that condominium because we didn't want to upset a neighborhood. So now you got an emergency road here, a private road. I don't think in a private road a fire truck can turn around. I know our big truck can't turn around. And if you're going to put little different things in there, the road's going to be narrower, we're limiting the safety of our children, not so much from the people coming through in traffic, but for emergencies. And I'm real concerned that I want to have 2 accesses there. I don't want one little itsy bitsy thing that maybe we can work on, or maybe we can go, what if it snows? It's all brick, and it's not brick, it's bark. How do we get in there? So my biggest concern is that, look, the county screwed us up for so many years trying to get that road relocated. There's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do is make it safe for those people that are going to live there. And if you own the property and you want to do something that meets everything, it falls in line, boy, that's hard for me to say, no, you can't do that with your property, because I don't want this village to come to my place and say, hey, you can't do that. That's not the way to do it. So this road here, emergency 12-foot wide road. Okay, and Ann's questions as far as, is it really going to happen? Hey, this is a county, they're screwy. We don't know. And if you can get that emergency exit in there, I can live with the other stuff. And I want wide roads because I want to be able to get our emergency equipment in there. And so that's where I'm coming from.
Nope.
I'm done.
All right, I'll take a shot. With that, thank you.
Hope you didn't mean it that way.
Great, Brian.
No, I'm going to throw some, obviously I've been kind of involved because of being on the plan commission and stuff too, so I do want to commend you for what you guys did, even though it was final hour. Obviously that was the county coming back, but I really do. I think that one thing that makes me happy about, and we've talked, we've had meetings, I don't like to do eminent domain or condemnation unless it was something that was absolutely necessary for the betterment of the community, so property rights. And I feel like that was a huge step forward. I think that's going to be a huge help in connecting utilities also, so I do want to commend you on that. I like the development. I think it's going to be good for Hartland. I know that we do have a comp plan as a guide. One of the things that I really like about this project, and I have the whole time, even if it was some of my misunderstanding, but, you know, having it be private. I know sometimes people talk about connectivity to the village. I see you having this trail right along the front. The people will be able to connect, and they will be able to go and walk on that trail that, you know, that's on the frontage, and they will be able to go and be connected to the rest of the village. And those trails, I do like I like the fact that now there is there's a secondary access point if that main entrance was clogged up. I do believe that in the next 10 years, it's just my opinion, something will end up possibly being to the east. However, I'm okay with it not connecting and it being a standalone condominium development. So to the point of one thing that you said, and it's a huge difference, I won't sit and say you have to, this is just my opinion, me as an individual. I'm not going to say, hey, you need to build these things to these standards. There might be some talking going off of like what was said of, hey, can you make it a little wider? But with the curbs and all this, I mean, you do this for a living. You know how to lay the road in there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, to me, it doesn't have to be to the specs. I think allowing you to have a condominium development, I think it still will sell very well. I think we've talked about that, and I know you've researched it. So I guess I just want to throw a few things, and hopefully we can keep them kind of quick. And if it is private roads with private maintenance, where the dues pay for the maintenance of this property, and it's a standalone, is this something that you still have the intention of pursuing, or are you unsure of that at this time?
I would say I'm unsure of that at this time.
Okay. If that is the case, I'm going to go digging a little deeper here. If we were
Jeff,
going to,
if I could clarify one thing, if they were private with public maintenance, really meaning snow removal and long-term maintenance, like every other road that the taxpayers fund here in the village of Hartland, I'd be fine with it.
right,
And
no,
I'd
but
build it
and
to
I'm
a
talking
public
about
standard.
the maintenance.
You're
being
talking about
that.
the maintenance,
So
right,
if, as
understood.
the whole time in the last 16 months, have we said we've got to talk about that some other time, one thing I'm going to
Yep.
kind of go to, and this isn't a gotcha, it's just, it really is, for the transparency's sake of it, if there's really only one avenue that would make you say, okay, I want to keep moving forward with the project, why wait the 16 months instead of saying we have to have that, not we have to talk about that later?
Yeah, you know, my assumption, which, you know what assumptions do, they get us to this spot right here. My assumption was that because we were gonna have all of these public components of it, that the maintenance, meaning snow removal, if you've got emergency services that are obligated to provide service to that far northern parcel, in that condominium development, that there's gonna have to be some public maintenance associated with it.
Right.
So normally, and again, there's no like standard in development that relates to this, but condominium associations that have strictly private roads oftentimes are more like driveways or parking lots than they
Yes.
are streets.
Yep.
Usually, you're pulling in off of a main public road, and I think this conversation came with the Plan Commission. You've got sewer and water laterals coming in, but you don't usually have mains, like an 8-inch water main that is, or sewer main for that matter, that's gonna cut right through the woods, right through to the east, and eventually serve land to the east of us, that the
Right.
Seatman zone. Likewise, you're not gonna have a main water loop, which in this case, we have a main water loop coming from Southern Oak Drive that will come up the hill around and eventually connect to the water line that's on the southeast corner of our project. So we've got some fairly, and I think we're even gonna have a water booster of some sort for pressure purposes. So we've got some fairly substantial integral parts of the sewer and water system for the village of Hartland that run underneath our roads.
Yeah.
So again, my assumption, and it was, I guess I
Sure,
should have been more
sure.
clear, was that these are going to be publicly maintained by the taxpayers, not by the homeowners association.
Okay.
So I should have been more clear on that early on. To me, private versus public was a plating issue. It wasn't necessarily an engineering issue, and we hadn't gotten to engineering at that point either.
Right,
So
right.
that's where my head was at this whole time on it.
Okay, and there, to your credit, there was some talk of connectivity in the comp plan and things like that. So with that moving forward, at this time, I guess I'm just gonna kind of re-clarify, I don't like to ask the same question twice, but when you say you're unsure, can you give me a percentage of how, the reason I'm asking, we're about to move into board discussion where we're gonna talk
Understood.
about whether or not to annex this property. Do you want Hartland to still annex this property, or do you want us to wait until you are sure?
I absolutely want this project, as I said from the start, and the only reason that I'm as persistent as I am continuing to come back here, the right thing for Hartland to do here is provide the connectivity to the rest of the community in this whole northeastern quadrant of the village with full services, meaning sewer and water. To me, for the sewer and water to be extended to the east, we should have public infrastructure over those public services to the extent possible, and that's public roads. I believe it's the right thing to do. That's why I'm standing here advocating for it. Just like, and I totally respect what Trustee Anson said about the walking trail. If we don't build the walking trail connecting over to Mary Hill, it saves us money. We're doing that because it's the right thing to do for Hartland to connect the residents from the east side to the west side. If you all say you don't want that trail, we'll save the money and not build it. But it's the right thing to do. I'm not trying to stick it to anybody or anything else. It's just we got to get it through there for residents.
And I'm over on time.
Anyway,
I think the board
I'm sorry.
will allow me just 15 seconds, and I'm going to ask it again. If it's moving in that direction, and we don't know where this is going to go.
Right.
If it were to be private roads with private maintenance, do you still request that the Village of Hartland annex this in to the Village of Hartland?
It's a good question.
It's important.
Yeah, I mean,
For
it's
you,
a fir-
I mean, for both
Right, it's a
parties.
first reading here tonight, so I don't know that that decision needs to get
Well,
made.
it could be.
No, there's quite a
I
few
mean,
things.
it's,
Well, it's a first reading for the annexation, right?
yeah.
And the annexation is contingent on rezoning and all of these other things getting agreed to. So I would say if all these other things we propose get agreed to, then yes, I want it in the Village of Hartland.
Let me ask you, Mr. President. There's some odds and ends that
My
have to
time's
be
up.
done
Thank
with
you.
this.
Thank you.
What, if we could still annex this property so that part of it is over with?
We can. The only reason that I asked that question, and I'm just gonna clarify here, so what we've done now is we've gotten done with Q&A. I appreciate you guys letting me go 30 seconds over. And now what we'll do is we'll kind of go to board discussion, but that would mean that should I close the public hearing and then have the discussion on these items? At this time, we're gonna close the public hearing. Okay, just so that everybody knows, I'm just clarifying. Thank you guys very much. Hold on, I just want to address this question from Dick. Dick, the reason that I asked that question was because I did want to clarify, with Mr. Newman, on if all of a sudden it was a breaking point where it was like, I don't want you to annex it if it goes a certain way. I wanted to make sure he had the ability to say that, as well. So that was
My
part of the
thing with
reason.
annexing, if they would fall out of this project, the next person, that's gonna be developed.
Well, of
And
course.
what I'm getting at is I hate to see all these homes, Town of Merton's got another subdivision going on a little bit north of this with 70 or 80 homes in, and all the sewer and water goes in the ground. Now that's 80 houses. They figure that's 100,000 gallons a year each house dumps in the ground. Now, sooner or later, we're gonna run out of clean water, which they are in the country.
Well, they're gonna be the first ones to run out.
And no, but that's why I'm in favor of annexing it and getting it in where there's
I am
sewer
too.
and water.
I am too. Trustee Walsh.
Am I allowed to make in place of doing discussion, I'd like to make a motion? Am I allowed to do that right now?
Technically, I believe so, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this entire issue until at least January of 2019, because we, as elected officials, need to do the best job for our citizens in the Village of Hartland, which means to make sound, informed, and intelligent decisions for the Village of Hartland. And at this time, there are just too many unanswered, undecided details, too many variables, and confusion on the project as a whole. Plus, with what we just got more information. So I do not feel comfortable taking action tonight when there's so much confusion and variables that we don't know yet. That's my motion,
Okay.
is to postpone it until January. Until we can get everything finalized.
Makes sense.
Well, you need a second. No, I didn't say second, but.
I know what it is. I heard you.
No,
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Jeff seconded.
It's been moved and seconded.
No, it hasn't been seconded.
Yep, Jeff.
I just
Oh,
did.
Jeff okay.
Discussion.
Okay.
If
I
anyone
guess-
else wants to speak up.
I'm kind of wondering,
Give
and
them time.
what questions, I mean, what do you think, I know, I understand the road and all that, but that comes from the state. What do you?
The county.
What kind of, or from the county, what kind of answers are you looking for?
Well, first of all of the drawings that they have given us say private, and they're saying public. They just gave us new information tonight. We have new financial information, which I haven't had a real good chance to look at. We've had a lot of different changes, and taken the path over the driveway, the sewer capacity, and also getting the, as I said, I had different information from the county than what we see here. And as I read this letter, it says that this is not absolute. They have to take it before the board. This is just one person's opinion. And I'd like to have all that confirmed before we vote. I think the biggest thing we need to know is it's going to be private or public. And that, I mean, why would we annex it or do anything until we have less confusion for everybody? I mean, we're elected up here. We're not, and I think we owe it to the citizens to not make that big of a decision until we have less confusion on this.
But it's in, if we don't annex it, it's in the town of Merton, and then it doesn't make any difference. And they'll put those houses up.
I understand that. I'm not
Well-
saying not to do it. I'm just saying postpone it just until they, to give the Newman Corporation, or LLC, whatever, give them time to get this through, get more definition from the county, get some documentation from the county saying, yes, we approve this is fine, and then we'll say public or private, let's get that defined, and then we'll say, okay, great, let's annex it. They say, great, you know, or they'll say, you know what, private, no, we don't want to do it now. Public, yeah, we do. I think that is very important for us to know before we take the next step.
Well, then I would suggest that the Plan Commission act on it before it comes back here, even if it comes back in January. I don't want these people, and I don't want to sit here talking to these people.
Oh, I don't either.
Well, I mean, for the simple reason, let the Plan Commission go back and forth with them and work out what you want. So when it comes in here, we have a hearing and we discuss it, and then it's handled. This back and forth now, this has been, I think, 5 years since this land has come up.
But it
You
is
know,
our
and
job.
these people are, well, never mind. I've said enough. I get upset with that stuff. There's a procedure, and we set a different procedure every time we
Hold
turn
on,
around.
okay, I'm gonna jump in here.
So I'm
Now,
done,
hold
no,
on.
I'm done with
Hold
that
on,
now.
hold on, no, well, but I'm not. So, there is a procedure, Dick, you're right. And in your defense, that procedure, there's a reason that there's a procedure and we need to uphold it. However, I'm taking both sides here in saying, when we have information coming, the Plan Commission never even got to see this.
Well, then it shouldn't even have come to us and have a hearing.
No, and I think that's what you're saying.
Because if we pass it tonight, then it goes back to the Plan Commission. If I was on the Plan Commission, I'd quit if you already approved before it goes to the Plan Commission.
Well,
That's
it's-
what I'm saying.
what
There's
it-
a
hold
proc-
on, hold-
There's a procedure that actually you run. You
1
know?
month ago-
It's just a mess.
Dick, if you'll let me
Well,
finish.
I'm finished.
It was
so you can-
suggested to me to set this hearing, and the Plan Commission suggested to send this to the board. We all voted to set this hearing, knowing we didn't have the answers because it was anticipated that the answers would be here. I can assure you I will not make that mistake again. But you are correct, there is a procedure. We jumped the gun anticipating answers all being in place, but that we aren't at that point yet. So you are correct, there is a procedure. We jumped the gun. Before we had the answers, we set the hearing.
But then there shouldn't even be a motion to hold it till the 19th because we can't do nothing. It should go back to the Plan Commission. Not hold it, let them straighten it out, and if it takes till February, if they can't come up with something that can come to this board and approve, don't bring it up. And I feel sorry for these guys. I know, I spend more time with him than I do with my wife.
Jeff, we're doing only board now, correct?
Yeah, that was what we were planning on.
So we're not taking any more comments?
What do you, I'll ask, but really
Yes.
briefly.
I think the applicant still has an opportunity to speak, right, or am I wrong?
Yeah.
No,
All I was gonna say is that
The hearing is closed, so I can't change and I had sent the rules out, so what I'm getting worried about is all of a sudden it gets real touchy. Your suggestion?
I don't think you should allow him to speak to start with.
Okay, it's been closed to the board, so let's keep it at the board level, and let's stay, I wasn't yelling at you, Dick, I was just, I was agreeing with you both. We don't have the answers, and we set the hearing, we don't have all the answers.
But I've
So
I've
we-
never sat on anything where it's so screwed up, frankly.
Well, but the fact of the matter is,
Well,
you
there's
sat
no
on things,
per-
and now the people are getting more and more happy, and they're here, but we work through the problems one at a time, so let's work the problems,
Well,
okay?
then we'll see him in February again.
Administrator Cox.
So let me just remind the village board that you have really no action items tonight, although I have asked that the village board give some guidance at this point. The village board, as it's constituted here, was frankly, I think, bothered by the process in the past. I sat in this chair, or that chair, and was admonished for the Plan Commission bringing matters to the board that had already been decided. I am working really hard to give this body as much of an opportunity to share its opinion as it can. So, as part of the interval between Plan Commission meetings, it's coming to the village board, and we've done this for a long time, where there have been actions in between for the village board as it relates to matters in front of the Plan Commission. Nonetheless, the only thing the village board is doing tonight, if you can call it only thing, is you have first reading of 2 ordinances. Nothing's going to happen on those 2 ordinances. They're draft ordinances as they are today. They relate to providing zoning for the property. They relate to annexing the property. There is no action on those today. I would certainly discourage you from taking action on those today because we're not ready, as you have all well pointed out. Plan Commission will see this matter again in November to try and work through the last bits of the details. One of the details is to try and draft a planned unit development agreement. That falls on me. I'm trying to get as much input as I can from the Plan Commission and from the village board so that I can draft a planned unit development agreement that will describe the development in detail and will describe the requirements of the developer as he constructs. Now, that won't be all of the engineering. It'll be probably the 60, maybe 80% engineering drawings will be attached. There's always changes that'll occur in the field, but there will be engineering drawings attached to that, and that item will come forward to the village board ultimately as well. I know that we're at least into November before we get a final recommendation out of the Plan Commission, before the village board would even consider action. So certainly the village board is within its prerogative, Trustee Walshager within her prerogative to extend the time and not bring it back here. My question would be, I assume that doesn't relate to bringing it back to the Plan Commission and allowing it to work through what it would ultimately recommend. But that's kind of what you've got now, is you've got some recommendations out of the Plan Commission. I tried to outline those in the ordinance. I apologize, in the memo that I wrote to you all, as to at least the points of decision that the Plan Commission had gotten to. My hope is that we can vet those here to see whether the village board agrees with those. Certainly the primary one of those is the public versus private matter. That's key to the whole thing, because that changes how, it may change whether the development goes forward in its current state. It may change how I have to write that planned unit development agreement, because public roads will require a different setup in terms of setbacks, as Matt alluded to earlier, compared to private roads, which would not necessarily mean all of those differences in setback. But I'm just trying to get this to a point where there's at least some information from the village board, so the Plan Commission has that when it goes back to work. My goal would be to at least have a draft of a planned unit development agreement, those nuggets of what is the approval going to be together for the Plan Commission at its next meeting. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Good.
Well, I apologize for bringing it up, but I never ran into that stuff. We have public hearings and all this kind of stuff where it used to be, and I've been told, forget what used to happen around here, because you got new people and new ideas. So that's what I'm trying to do. But you send it to the Plan Commission, the Plan Commission figures out what they want, they send it to the board. And if the board wants information on it, which we do get information, but the Plan Commission coming to the board and give us opinion, and it goes back to the Plan Commission and back to the board, And then we have a public hearing, we had 2 public hearings already, and we're ended up with nothing. Now I'm done talking about it because I get in trouble because I shouldn't say anything. But that's the way it used to be. You used to have a system. You bring something into the village, it goes to the plan commission studies it and sends it to the village board. And the village board, either they want some changes or but they can make, at that evening, they can have it done. These people keep coming down to these public hearings and they're gonna go home now for another 3 months. That's all I'm saying. And I've said too much and I apologize for speaking my piece, but that's how I feel.
For myself, going off of what Administrator, and for the discussion, since we're in discussion, and also going off of what Administrator Cox had alluded to provide, this is just obviously me as an individual, we do not have a condo development in the village of Hartland that has public maintenance. At least that's the information I've been given. I asked, we don't have one. Originally, because of connectivity and stuff like that, and trying to make this a neighborhood, there was some of that, and obviously there was some confusion, trying to take pieces of the old comprehensive plan to make them gel with this, that, and the other. So with that being said, to provide the best guidance I can from me as an individual, as only one person on this board, as only one of 7, I would like to see it end up going with private roads, with private maintenance, seeing the taxpayer save quite a bit of money, seeing outstanding housing built in Hartland, a great development built in Hartland. Yes, the taxpayers save money. We just approved the budget. It's very difficult and takes a lot of hard work by people to even get that to go down at all. And I think that the development can be great. I think we will get there. I think it's going to be good, but I'd like to see it as its own standalone because I do not want to force Mr. Newman to have to build things up to, other than for safety, but to build things up to certain standards, such as saying, no, you have to build it to, normal street standards like the streets we have outside around Nixon Park. Even the road that goes into Nixon Park is not up to village standards. That's a driveway going in there, and it works just fine. It works great. As for the safety concerns, I personally don't have those same concerns. However, I think it's noble to bring them up. I think the trucks will either back out, they'll get in. There's a lot of area up there. I think that we have poured tons of money into our fire department, into our paramedic service. I think that if anything's going to happen to me, I don't care what it is that happens, those are the ones that I'm going to depend on to come, and those are the ones I'll feel the safest when they do. I think they'll get there. I think they'll be willing to storm through hell to get to anybody that's in danger, and I really mean that, because all of a sudden all bets are off when there's an emergency like that. So I trust that completely. I think that for the first time in 10 years, we are very, very close and on the threshold of something very good happening at this property. And it's my hope that it ends up being something that is acceptable to Mr. Newman, and that he does want to do it in Hartland as he has for so long. So that's, if that does provide any guidance, it's just me. It's not a vote, but I don't know.
Although, don't forget, you do have a motion on the floor.
I know, that was part of my discussion.
Okay.
I was discussing. So we have a motion on the floor to, and that motion is to postpone completely until January, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question in there. If all the answers were provided, would you still want it to be? I'm just asking just for clarification.
The reason I didn't go with December was obviously because of the holidays, and typically our second meeting usually falls on a Christmas or the day before or after, and we usually don't have that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in with Thanksgiving and all that, I was trying to make it the most logical to me would have been the first meeting in January, was my thinking behind that, to give them time to get to the county and get the documents, and for everything to get back to us and give us time to look at everything.
Okay.
If you could get that done, even the first meeting in December, because I doubt if we'll have the second one.
Right.
I haven't even looked to see when that is.
No, you're right.
That was why I picked January.
More time.
I would like time more than,
Plan Commission's not gonna make a recommendation
3 or 4 days to look at it and actually, and again, I would like it to be its own entity also.
Okay.
That was my reasoning behind January.
All right. Any input from, yeah, so this is the second, so we have 2 more meetings plus the one in December. Trustee Swanson?
Well, since this is the first reading of bill for an ordinance, on both those matters, we typically, the earliest we could get it done would be, what, the end of November? And that could be postponed. If we, are you saying that we don't deal with the annexation or, okay, then we might be in a position we'd have to adopt it on the first reading in January?
Well, as we found out at one of our meetings, we can do that if we postpone some rule or something, correct?
We suspend.
Yeah, suspend the rules.
But again, I would, right, I am not comfortable, until we have, I'm not comfortable making any decision until we have everything in front of us. I don't think it's fair to the citizens or the village of Hartland. We need to do what's best for the village, and I think I like the condos. I think it is, as you said, as its own entity, I think it would be it's a great project. I have, like I said, issues with certain things in it, as I've stated, and I want to find out more from the county, because what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing here, nothing is meshing. And I want to see more, I want to see something concrete on that.
We've waited many years on the county, you know.
Bless their hearts.
Yes, but that's.
That's all I can say.
My opinion is that we benefit greatly whether it's public or private. If we're going to demand that they build it to public standards, then maybe we should service it because of the sewer and water lines running underneath that we have to service anyway.
You're going backwards.
You'd have to get an easement then to come in there if
If
it's
we-
private with your house.
Yeah. If, on the other hand, we didn't need to build it to those standards, and that would allow it to stay private, so that the association would take care of the plowing. I don't know how that would work exactly. That would be a problem for Dave to work out. You know, if, then we could, you know, I'd like to prefer that because it saves taxpayer money. But I would like to hear what Matt does. These discussions or postponing it to January, does that delay in any way your thoughts as far as when you could get started on the project if we eventually approve it and dot all the i's and cross the t's?
Our issue is if it's public roads, we have to do another step in the process. We have to do a CSM to actually dedicate the right-of-way to the village. Whereas if we have private roads, then we don't have to do that separate step. So that's why we need the guidance here tonight that Dave is referring
To
to.
be clear, you still have to do a CSM because you still have
To
to
combine.
dedicate the county rights of way.
And to combine those two
You still have a
properties.
CSM in the process, is my point, Matt.
I think we need two, though, the other way. But regardless, there's a CSM needed. The other point I would just make is that we have a recommendation from the Plan Commission already, so going back to the Plan Commission, we were there for a few hours last Monday discussing this and the month prior to that. Their recommendation is approval with conditions. And so, with all due respect to what Trustee Walschlager is saying, well, in general, when these things happen and there's things that are unknown, there's always things that are unknown for a while until you can figure them out. It costs money to figure these things out, like design and emergency access that the county will approve at a slope that comes up to our cul-de-sac, at a slope that's achievable for a fire truck to drive up, which requires. So my point is, there's things that we need to do, but what the Plan Commission did, which I think makes a lot of sense, is they made an approval with conditions. So they said, these are the things we're willing to agree to if you can do the following. And that's exactly what Administrator Cox put in his letter, and that's why I was holding up. I didn't want to be rude, but, there's points here that say exactly what the recommendations are. And that's what we're looking for feedback from the board on, is do you agree with those conditions, or are there other modifications to those conditions that you'd like to see us pursue? One of those conditions is what we're talking about. They said, we'd love to see you try to connect to Highway K instead of Southern Oak. We said, great, we'll get on that. That's what we spent the last week trying to do. The best we could do is get you a hand sketch, at least show you visually what we're talking about, and we showed the county, and they said tentatively, yes, it's okay. It's gonna take time for us to get that engineered. But I feel like every point, the reason this has taken 18 months so far, at least that I've been involved, I think it was February, so it's probably more like 20 months now, is because at every turn, there are more things that have to get figured out. That's the way developments progress. But we just need to know that we're moving forward so we can continue to take those steps. If we're told tonight that we have to do private roads, despite what the Plan Commission's recommendation was, the Plan Commission voted on this already and said they recommend public roads. If the board turns around and says, actually, Plan Commission, we disagree, we'd like you to do private roads, I understand that, then our company's gotta go back, we gotta look at the numbers that Administrator Cox gave us about the costs of it, and we have to figure out whether that's something that we view as reasonable, and we have to talk to Village Engineering about what modifications from public specifications they'd allow us to make to those roads. And I don't know that answer, because we haven't had that conversation. We assumed that they were gonna be built to a public spec. So my point is, a lot of the information we have, we've had these conversations in depth with the Plan Commission. I know you were part of them early on, but we've had these conversations in depth. What we're here tonight to learn is, does the village board agree with the Plan Commission's recommendations, or are there modifications to it? And then we have to go back and make the decisions. Are we gonna continue forward, or are we gonna stop and consider what other directions we have? So, again, we're trying to get that feedback here tonight to know, do you agree with the Plan Commission? If so, great. What are those, same conditions, or are they different? If not, then we gotta decide what to do. But it's been a long journey to get to this point, so we're trying to get, I'm not trying to compel you to act, saying if you delay it till December, no, we're gonna run away scared. It's not that, but a lot of these things we've been talking about, and it's just time to make decisions on some of these things. If the county says no to an emergency access on Highway K, after they gave us an indication they might say yes, well, then we only have one of two options. One is we go to Southern Oak, which would be back in front of you. The Plan Commission already made that recommendation. If you can't go to K, then you need to go to Southern Oak because you need emergency access in this neighborhood, which would be vacated in the future. That's what the Plan Commission told us. If the county says yes, we're good. The only other option is you just don't have one. But my point is, these recommendations have been discussed in depth, and we're here to figure out, does the board agree with them, or if not, what do we need to change? And then we need to respond to that. But to send us back to the Plan Commission, they're gonna probably look at us in a few weeks and go, what are we here to talk about?
Well, that's what I'm saying, excuse me, but I'm saying now, we got a piece of paper tonight that we're supposed to approve to you, and he said the Plan Commission hasn't even seen it.
This is only an hour, this is only 3 hours old. They didn't,
That's what I mean, so now we approve, what I'm getting at, you don't do that. You don't approve it and send it to the Plan Commission, the Plan Commission sits down and says, what do we want to even take it up for, you already approved it.
The Plan Commission says specifically regarding emergency access, the Plan Commission agreed that emergency access should be provided. So that's number one, we need to provide one. And that the access could be at Southern Oak Drive or at another location if the developer can design one, which is the hand sketch you have there. So it's either or. It could be or any other location along Highway K. It doesn't have to be southwest corner either. It could be any other location. So that's a condition. Of particular interest was an access to the southwest corner at Highway K. This access will also serve. So they told us, here's your choice. You have to do one or the other. If you do these, we'll approve it.
You have an easement though from Seaton, don't you, that you could take it directly east?
We do not.
Well, how can the Plan Commission approve? Well, I can see that, I read that part, but when he said Plan Commission,
they left it open-ended.
They said we have to provide
Because they
emergency
have to come
access.
back to the.
no, I don't want to, I
I'm
don't
saying
want
they
to.
left it, it was broad, it was painted with a broad stroke.
And if we can't do that, we can't move forward. That's on us.
Well, I guess I'm lost, I've just never.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second on the floor, and I'm not gonna stop anyone from talking, but at some point, we're gonna have to decide what we're gonna have to do with this, and whether, we think that, we should push it off till January. I think it's gonna be in order that we end up having some type of an informational special meeting. And I'm not setting this, I'm just saying where there is a joint, Plan Commission, Village Board meeting to get us all on the same page. I'm on it, but if there is confusion, I want to make sure people have the most info that they have. So it's been moved and seconded. If anybody wants to say anything else, or if anybody's going to amend it, or even the motion, or if
And
they're
if we
going to...
have a motion on it, you can't bring it up again until January.
That's why I'm asking whether we
so
want
just
to.
so
We
you
can't
know.
bring it up, but the plan commission and Newman can do
I
whatever
believe
they're
we
gonna
can.
do.
Could we have an informational meeting?
We set our
Trustee
own rules.
Walsh
so do
later, she
whatever
made
you
the
want.
motion. I mean, I would think you could, but that's up to.
If it was just for information and to talk about it, we could. We can't, I believe the motion is to not take it up to vote on it.
Correct.
So we can talk about it and get these answers.
Whatever, we change everything as it goes in.
Oh, Dick, every time, I tell ya. Someday I'll get it, Dick. All right,
I'm confused because we're not voting tonight, so,
well, but there's a motion, so we have to vote on whether to postpone
Right.
it all the way till January.
but we're not voting on the Newman
We're
development.
voting on the
But it's the
motion.
first
We're
reading.
voting on a motion to postpone the
Correct.
voting on the motion.
Right.
We're on another motion.
I know, it's a meeting to have a meeting of a
I
meeting.
want
Yep.
to postpone it until we have our ducks in a row.
Okay,
More ducks than one.
right. And I was throwing out if maybe you'd be open to saying, okay, we'll take a look at it in December, but if the ducks
No.
aren't in a row, then no. Okay. It's been, any other discussion on
That's
this?
just not enough time.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone, bringing this up for a vote until
January.
January, the first meeting in January. Well, no, if there's more
Not-
discussion, go
Not
ahead.
a meeting, it's not a vote, it's been moved to postpone for the first reading.
Yes, or any vote on
On any of them.
on the annexation
Now
and
she's
zoning.
changing her motion.
No,
Well, you didn't say until, never mind,
I've got
I'm
it
getting
written
in
out.
trouble there, so.
Dave, how long does the village have to act
Excuse me.
on our petition?
Can't get to speak during board-only session.
He's clarifying for
That's
the,
not what's been going on here. You and I both know that. He had his time, we had our time, he had his time again, you went into closed session. Why is he continuing to talk to the board?
yeah. I understand your
asked him a
frustration.
question.
There's a lot of unanswered
It's not
questions.
frustration, it's a very direct question.
Okay.
Why does he get to keep speaking to the board?
For a point of order, we will close it to the board. I'm very sorry. It was to clarify for board members, because as you can see, there's a lot of unanswered questions here.
That's fair. You asked him some direct questions, but now all of a sudden he's interceding, and I have a
I
problem.
understand. We will keep this closed to the board. There is a question, a motion and a second on the table. We're gonna take this vote unless someone else needs clarification
I
or,
need clarification
Okay.
now. Does it mean we're not gonna do first and second readings?
until January, correct.
I'm gonna clarify.
Isn't your
You have to
purpose to not
clarify.
have a vote?
Pardon me?
Isn't your purpose to not have a vote till January,
My-
when we presumably have all?
My motion is to postpone the entire issue with the board until such time being January, that we
Period.
have, correct, until, and that's when we would start the reading of, like we were gonna do tonight. I wanna postpone all of that until January, until we have less confusion and more of the details and answers. I don't think it's fair to our citizens to start any of that process until some of these very important, as Mr. Newman even mentioned, very important issues answered. And that does involve the county.
with your motion, are you saying that it is okay to information gather? That's my big thing.
Information gather, yes. Take action on, no.
No, but I understand the action part. But when you say the whole issue, information gathering, and even if there's meetings that need to take place to get this information,
When you say meetings, what do you mean?
I mean, if I were to call a special meeting between the plan commission and the village board so that everybody's on the same page.
As long as no action's taken.
No action's
Yes,
gonna be
that-
taken.
yes,
Can we
yes,
information
yes.
gather,
I will
meet,
amend it
and
for that,
discuss it? Okay, that was my big
Yes,
question.
yes.
Wait a minute.
Absolutely.
How, are we telling the plan commission they can't take action now? Is that what we're saying?
It's
The
not in front of
motion
the
was
plan
made to
commission.
postpone it to January,
What?
period.
For
You get a
us to
second
take
to act on
action.
that. You can't have everybody on the board adding to the motion.
Well, I'm clarifying the motion. or
No, but I'm
asking
just saying, that's, her
Clarification.
motion, and got a second to it, was to postpone this to
Jeff,
January,
Jeff.
period.
To Did you want
Don't
to
add
see
in,
if it needs to be clarified?
No, I just want to make sure that whatever we move gets written down properly and that we know, however this goes. If the motion is to not take action, that's one thing. I want to make sure that when we're not taking action so that answers can be gathered, that we have time to gather that information. That's my big thing.
Information is fine.
Okay.
But to have a meeting like this and have it discussed again with everyone, I think should wait till January.
and have the clerk read off what you got there, and that's what the motion was there.
Let me read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
The motion is to postpone this entire issue until at least January of 2019. We as elected officials need to do the best job for our citizens in the village of Hartland, which means to make sound, informed, and intelligent decisions for the village of Hartland. At this time, there are too many unanswered and undecided details, too many variables and confusion with the project as a whole. I do not feel comfortable taking an action when there is so much confusion. That's the motion,
And you had a second.
and it's been seconded. All in favor of postponing this until January when the information has been gathered and there's less confusion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
I abstain.
Nay. We have one abstention,
Two.
we have one nay,
Oh, did you say nay or abstain?
and Dick abstained. You got it well? So with that, the motion's been moved and seconded, so it will be postponed other than for information gathering and meetings to gather that information and get answers until the first meeting in January. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to approve award of a contract to Clear Path Connections of Pewaukee for the purchase and installation of electronic locks at various village facilities in the aggregate amount of $62,402.20.
Also move.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next, we have a consideration of a motion to appoint additional election inspectors with terms to expire December 31st, 2019.
I so
move
move.
we approve.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dickon.
Did they get, you got them both? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. At this point, at this time, we have a consideration of a motion to recess to closed session pursuant to the State Statutes 19.85, 1, subsection E, deliberating of or negotiating for the purchase of public properties, investment of public funds, or conduct of other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed sessions regarding the potential purchase or acquisition of public property, namely a community center facility, through an option to acquire the Zion Evangelical Lutheran Church at 415 West Capitol Drive, Hartland, and to return to open session to consider actions related to the matter pursuant to 19.85, Section 2. May I have a roll call vote?
Trustee Anson?
Aye.
Trustee Duro?
Aye.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Landwehr?
Aye.
Trustee Swanson?
Aye.
Aye. President Vanderstone?
Aye. To clarify for everybody, I should have had a motion on that, but
want my oatmeal in the morning.
Okay, excellent.
Do we-
So at this
Gotta
time,
wait for Dave
we will
to
go
come
back into open session. And the item we have on the agenda is consideration of a motion to direct staff to deliver an option to purchase document to the leadership of Zion Evangelical, thank you, Evangelical Lutheran Church, and attempt to negotiate the execution of the option.
Do you
Second.
put down the amount? The
No.
option?
No, no.
No, 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 no.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Was that the motion? I'll second it then.
No, I motion that we,
You motion,
Okay.
you seconding? It's been moved and seconded to direct staff to, go to
Extend the offer.
negotiate the execution of the option. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Abstain. Abstain.
Abstention? We knew that one, and you got that. All right, that motion passes. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to adopt Resolution 10-22-2018, a resolution of necessity for Hartland Community Center. I also, since there are people from the public, if someone does want to speak, please go towards the podium. But with that, that's our next item on the agenda.
So remember, this is that motion that basically, the resolution indicates that the village board at this point thinks it's necessary to move ahead with the community center. This will sort of preserve, if you will, or at least start a process of making sure, using the rules of eminent domain to make sure that the church has all of the notifications that it ought to have and that it has its rights protected as the village moves forward through an option or an attempt to acquire the land from them through negotiation.
And it is, as if it's okay that I say, just for the sake of doing things, we have been guided by our legal counsel that even though it sounds bad saying eminent domain, it's very different than what it's used for. It's part of the process of actually making sure things are fair, and as they've said, they have everything they need. So, just so everyone knows.
I make the motion to adopt resolution 10-22-2018.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution for the necessity for Hartland Community Center. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Abstain.
I'm opposed.
The motion is carried. Announcements, I have none.
Election.
I don't think I have any right now. In between now and the next time we are in this room, there is an election.
Leave them to our clerk to give all the updates on the election. There's an election, everybody. Make sure to go vote. All voting,
Absentee voting is currently taking place, Village Boardroom, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. If you have questions, contact the clerk's office.
and voting is on
November 6th.
November
At
6th,
St.
and it is
Charles.
all at St. Charles.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, Alex Conan, full-time lieutenant with the fire department. Just speaking on behalf of Chief Dean. Just some brief announcements. We recently had our pancake breakfast on October 13th. Just an update, we had about 500 people that visited us, and we flipped about 2,500 pancakes per chief. It sounds like that's some money. We had a great turnout this year. It was awesome. We had Flight for Life that came. Great overall event with the community. And then we did our second annual pizza fundraiser delivery with Enters. And we had, last year, it looks like we had 92 pizzas delivered. And this year we went for a total 150 pizzas. 104 9-volt batteries were installed. And over 80 homes were surveyed for hazards. So we just want to thank you guys for the continued support as well as the community.
Thank you, it was great.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Because they even had to change my battery. Mine was beeping when they came in.
Oh, it
So
find a lot of people. So
I even got a free battery.
Yep, absolutely, and we're more than happy to do it. I think it's been a really great event, so we're really happy to do it. A lot of people have a good time. So.
Well, thank you, because they did find, my mom thought she had a smoke detector outside her bedroom, and she doesn't.
Oh, really?
It was gone, and
Yeah.
we didn't know it, so, and they found that, so
Yeah.
that was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
we're always more than happy if anybody, a lot of residents don't realize they can just ask us and we can take a look. So
The
we have no.
pizza was fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of people don't realize. They think it's awesome. We had people that were calling. We're like, wait, I heard my neighbor just got a pizza. Can we get one? So
Yeah, you tell them it's full next year.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was full this year too. So
Yeah.
thank you guys. Have a great
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, unless, any other announcements? I'd entertain a motion.
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned.
You didn't ask if anybody-